We're pleased to have Lord Digby Jones, former Minister for State for the UK Trade and Investment, in the studio. Also has a number of non-executive directorships and advisory positions with major corporations. Thank you for staying with us, Digby. Now, your book that you're here to promote, we'll give the details how people can get hold of it in a moment. It starts with the statement, "I love my country."
Yeah.
Do you think that Britain is an easily lovable country nowadays, especially for non-Britons?
Well, as I got around the world in the job promoting British business over the last few years, I came to the conclusion that we're seen as arrogant. We're seen as, in many parts of the world, we're seen as the former colonial influencer, good and bad. And we're always the ones that people raise their game to beat at sport, for instance. But we do have a reputation for fair dealing. We do have a reputation for caring. And I actually form the view that the only country that really deeply doesn't like us is us. We have a pretty bad view of ourselves, and we fall for tall poppy syndrome all the time. You know, the field of poppies, one grows up, we nurture it and cherish it till it's above the rest, and then we try and chop its heads off. And we have got to stop this. And patriotism is something which can be the refuge of rogues, which becomes nationalism and all the nasty things that go with that. But true, genuine love of a country, and then serving in any way you can, is something which has gone out of fashion in Britain and is almost suspected. I think a good dose of that at the moment wouldn't be a bad thing at all.
So what do you think that Britain's biggest legacy to the world has been? Is it law, democracy, language?
I think, well, if you look at it over 200 years, it would probably be the rule of law. It would probably be the ability to do business based on a solid foundation of an enforceable contract, and everything that goes around that, like the independence of a judiciary and the ability to cross borders with your legal rights. If you look at it since probably the Second World War, but certainly in the last 20 years, it would be the development of the global language being English. But I think, to be fair, if there was an American listening to this, he'd probably say, hey, just a minute, we took English around the world, not you. And there'll be an element of truth in that. And indeed, you know, the Japanese would say, well, we built the stuff, if you remember, that used English as the basis for it, and Bill Gates would be saying, and we then put the software into it. So I think English was the language, but other countries took that around the world the same as us. I think the other point is we are the huge free trading nation. We are the most open market on earth. We don't do tariff protection. We do say, I don't care about the colour of your skin or the God you worship, you're welcome. We're tolerant. We say, please come and trade with us and invest in our nation, and let us do the same. We do actually practice what we preach. We don't do the protectionism of America or France or Japan. You know, we're not protectionist in our DNA. That, if you're an emerging market anywhere in the world, is very nice to see. And the Brits around the world are known as free trading people, which is good, actually.
It's interesting you mentioned the roles that you have held sort of as a business ambassador for Britain and with UKTI. 2006, 2007, I believe you used to be a business advisor for Prince Andrew, the Duke of York.
Yeah.
What do you make of the situation he finds himself in now and the amount of flack that he's getting from the press for a lot of his business and personal associates?
Well, I think you can split this into three ways. I mean, the first is he has obviously made one or two errors of judgment which hit all the newspapers, for which he's apologised. Aren't we all human? Don't we all do that sort of thing from time to time? Is that excusable? No, but I think it's understandable, and he's apologised. The second is the involvement with one or two countries in the world where he was asked by successive governments of the United Kingdom to go and get close to these people. He should not be criticised for that. And whether it was Labour or Tory, they both asked him to go and get into one or two countries at leadership level. So I would be looking for government to support him. The third and the most important area is his ambassadorial role when he goes around the world banging the drum. And it is fair to say he does a really good job in certain markets, especially in this part of the world, and especially on the west coast of the States, for instance. Does really good stuff, takes a brief well, works hard, knows his subject, and is understood. It is true to say, if you go to other parts of the world where they don't understand royalty, they are possibly anti it, then no. You know, he won't do a good job. And by the way, why are we trying to put a square peg into a round hole? So I'm very supportive of him, actually, in what he does for our country, What I would ask those that make these decisions is put a square peg into a square hole, not a round one.
Are you suggesting then that he is in the wrong role doing some of that?
No, I think he's in the right role. I just think that in certain areas of the world he's been asked to do an impossible job. And what is important going forward is we use the talent that he has in the right way. And you know, I've been with him. So this isn't just me thinking this. I've actually been with him on overseas visits. And I have to say, he knows what he's doing. And you can see that certain countries think, hey, I like this. I enjoy this. Other countries, you can see, they go, what's this mean to me? Why is he here? And that's not his fault. That's the fault of the people who actually ask him and put him into certain environments.
You say in your book, which we'll talk about and give the details of how to get hold of it in just a moment, Britain is the world's 6th largest manufacturing country in the world.
Yep.
You cite examples of Airbus parts and the Nissan factory in Sunderland. But the UK was the largest manufacturer in the world till about 120 or so years ago.
We also stuck kids up chimneys, but we stopped doing that as well.
I know, but much of that, obviously in the old days, it was all British owned. I mean, now, do you see it as a positive that there is still quite a lot manufactured in Britain, or as a negative that so little of it is British owned?
Well, I don't know what British owned means, because if you think, when Vodafone took over management back in the early part of the 2000s, everybody said, oh, this is a British company buying a German company. Well, actually, the shareholder registers of both companies, the majority of them, were all in New York. So Chris Gent, when he bought management on behalf of Vodafone, went to New York to do the deal. He didn't go to Dusseldorf. Now, at the same time, Tata, Indian, own Jaguar Land Rover. You and I would call that British. Actually, I don't really care. What I'm after is for Tata to create employment in Britain, generate wealth in Britain, pay corporation tax in Britain, and stay in Britain to do it. At the same time, for the life of me, I can't understand why the French have now decided that there are certain sectors which can't be owned by, inverted commas, overseas companies. When actually, if you think about it, they've actually said yoghurt is a matter of national security. Hello? You know, at the end of the day, what matters in a globalised environment is that countries play host to investing companies from all over the world that create wealth, pay tax, and employ people. Now that is so much more important than whether they are Indian or American or British. And I want to get away from this labelling of who owns what and get more interested in, please come and do it in my country. Please come and invest in my country. Risk your capital in my country. Work hard in my country. That's so much more important than, oh, I'm sorry, I'm not having you, because at the moment it's Italy, isn't it? It's having a real fight with France about this, because the Italians are saying, well, we let the French buy Parmalat, but the French won't let us buy a power company. Well, you know, France has got to grow up and understand that in Asia's century, either we understand transborder, cross-border ownership and utilisation, or the Chinese will have your lunch and the Indians will have your dinner.
Your latest book, or your first book, I should say, is...
well, I always called it the book until it seemed to be going quite well. Now I've called it my first book.
It's called Fixing Britain, the Business of Reshaping Our Nation. How can people get hold of it?
If you go on info at britbiz-uae.com, that's info at britbiz-uae.com, and it's there they'll point you in the right direction. Amazon have got it on at the moment, so you could go there as well. And what I'm after is asking questions about why don't we change the way that we run a nation in the 21st century. And I've spoken about the one that gave me my break, Britain, but it could apply to quite a few other countries actually.
Well, I finally have to ask you, because you're a big Aston Villa fan.
I am.
A lot of time with Aston Villa. Are they
You're kind enough to say I still follow football. Are they? I don't think they'll go down. I think they will fight and scrap for it at the end. I think they've lost their mojo, if I may use the word. I think their dressing room is having a bit of a problem. What is more important is that we don't see the West Midlands, which is my home, Birmingham's my home, and we don't see the West Midlands going down. That's Wolves, Birmingham, West Bromwich Albion and Aston Villa, all of which at the moment are scrapping it out. I'd much rather some of those that begin with W's like West Ham and Wigan, or B's like Blackpool and Blackburn. That's where they can have the scrap for relegation, not good old Aston Villa.
Lord Digby Jones, former Minister of State for UK Trade and Investment, thank you very much indeed.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.